Ramanaya Namaha. Om Gurave Namaha. Om Akhanda Samvidakaraya Namaha. Om Mahaujase Namaha. Om Karanodbhavaya Namaha. Om Jagadhitaavataraya Namaha. Om Shri Bhuminathastalothitaya Namaha.
Okay. I'm not really going to give a talk. I'm just going to continue what I was doing last time, which was reading and talking about who am I, until any of you want to interrupt me with questions, and then we can go on with questions. But since we chanted Om at the beginning, I thought of saying what Bhagavan said about the meaning of Om. In one of the verses of Ramana, Bhagavan says, Omkaraparo Opoya Villoi Uneya Ariva Arunachala. That Omkaraparo means the import or the reality of Om. Opoya Villoi, unequaled and unsurpassed. Uneya Ariva, who can understand you, O Arunachala? So Arunachala, the meaning of Om is Arunachala. And as Bhagavan also said many times, Arunachala is I. So when we chant Om, what we should remember is not the sound of the mantra, but what it denotes, which is I. That is what Bhagavan asks us to constantly remember. But we are so interested in this external world, but we are constantly overlooking what is ever present, and our mind is darting after these fleeting appearances. Last time I read through the first 6 paragraphs of Nāṉ Yār, who am I? So I'll just continue from where I left. In the 7th paragraph, Bhagavan begins by saying, Yathakamai Ulladu Atmasrupam Andre. That which actually exists is only Atmasvarupa. That is Bhagavan's experience. It is not our experience because we see all this multiplicity. So Bhagavan then explains how all this multiplicity comes into existence. What is the reality of all this? Bhagavan says, the world, soul and God are Karpanegal in it, that's in Atmasvarupa, like silver in a shell. Karpanegal means, Kalpana is a Sanskrit word that means fabrication, imagination, mental creation, or illusory superimposition. So the world, the soul, that's our self as an individual, and God are all mere mental fabrications, imaginations, like the silver we see in a shell. These three appear simultaneously and disappear simultaneously. As soon as we wake up from sleep, the world we see the world, we have thoughts about God, whether he exists or not, or whatever we may choose to think about him. Most of us think about him. The atheists think about him more than the rest of us, but whatever it is, it's hard to get away from the idea of God. And then Bhagavan says what all these things are. Swarupa, that's our own self, alone is the world. Swarupa alone is I. Swarupa alone is God. Everything is Shiva Swarupa. Shiva Swarupa means our self, which is Shiva, the absolute reality. So one of the first supporters of Dawkins is Bhagavan. So just like Dawkins said, God is a delusion, Bhagavan also says God is a delusion. But Bhagavan doesn't stop with that. Dawkins is a little partial, because he chooses only God as a delusion. He forgets the tell us that, or probably he doesn't yet understand, that the world and ourselves who see the world are also delusions. What is real is only the I. But when we rise as I am this person, then the world and God also seem to come into existence. Then in the next paragraph, in the sixth paragraph, he tells about the actual practice of who am I. Then in this paragraph, he begins to talk, in the 8th and 9th paragraph, he talks about other practices. And he begins the 8th paragraph by saying, to make the mind subside, there is no adequate means other than vichara. By here, when Bhagavan talks about the mind subsiding, in Upadesha he says there's two types of subsidence of mind, laya and nasa. Laya is temporary subsidence, nasa is permanent subsidence, destruction. And what subsides in laya will rise again, what subsides in nasa will never rise again. But nasa is the state in which we realize that the mind never actually arose, the state in which we experience ajata, the non-creation or non-origination of anything. That which is alone is and it always is. So when Bhagavan says here to make the mind subside, he's not talking about subside as in sleep or as in laya, but to make the mind subside permanently in the state of nasa. There is no adequate means other than vichara. The reason for this is the difference between vichara and everything else that we do. Anything we do, any type of sadhana or any worldly activity or anything, involves attending to something other than I. Without attending to something other than I, we can't do our meditation on God, we can't do our mantra japa, we can't do our puja, we can't do our worldly activities, we can't go and rob the bank, we can't become President of the United States, we can't become rich businessman, we can't do anything without attending to things other than I. So vichara is unique, because vichara is the state in which we attend to nothing other than I. And the reason why that alone will destroy the mind, so long as we're attending to anything other than I, we are feeding the mind. We feed the mind on thoughts and on all the things we see through we perceive through our senses. So long as the mind is attending to these things, it seems to exist. When we attend to I, where is the mind? It disappears. The mind is, Bhagavan says, it's just like a ghost. It's a phantom. It has no form of its own. Only by grasping forms in the form of thoughts or objects of the senses, or all the things that we experience outwardly according to Bhagavan includes our own thoughts and feelings. Anything other than I, according to Bhagavan, is outward. So long as we're attending to anything outward, the mind isn't going to be destroyed. To destroy it, the only way is vichara, attending only to I. And then Bhagavan goes on to say, if restrained by other means, the mind will remain as if subsided, but will emerge again. Even by pranayama, by breath restraint, the mind will subside. However, though the mind remains subsided, so long as the breath remains subsided, when the breath emerges or becomes manifest, the mind will also emerge and wander under the sway of its vasanas, its predispositions. The birthplace of both the mind and the prana is one. Thought alone is the swarupa, the form of the mind. The thought I alone is the first thought of the mind. It alone is the ego. From where the ego arises, from there alone the breath starts. Therefore, when the mind subsides, the prana also subsides, and when the prana subsides, the mind also subsides. So basically, Bhagavan's there just giving in a nutshell why pranayama brings about the subsidence of the mind. That is, the pranayama is a trick used in yoga to make the mind subside. It's an artificial means to make the mind subside. But as Bhagavan says, it will rise again. So it's only of of temporary benefit. It's not going to yield any permanent fruit. And then Bhagavan says something which is not actually his own teachings, but it's from the point of view of yoga, because he's explaining in terms of yoga. Because people then are liable to raise the question, in sleep our mind subsides, but people seeing our body see it still breathing. So how is that? So Bhagavan's real answer to that is, your body in sleep doesn't exist in your view, it only exists in the view of others, who exist only when you wake up, and only when you're awake they tell you, we saw your body breathing when you were asleep. According to Bhagavan, there's no body, nothing when we're asleep. All these imaginations that arise when we wake up. So Bhagavan says, however, in sleep, even though the mind has subsided, the breath does not subside. That's from the point of view of yoga, or the point of view of beyond other people. It is arranged thus by the ordinance of God for the purpose of protecting the body, and so that other people do not wonder whether the body is dead. Here he says it's ordained by the ordinance of God. In the previous paragraph he said God is just an imagination. So there itself he's giving us a clue. This is only diluted truth he's saying here. It's not the absolute truth. It's true so long as we take the body to be something real, and the world to be something real. And so long as we take the body and world to be real, Bhagavan says it's wrong to dismiss God, because God is as real as the world. Actually, God is our own self, but so long as we see differences, we see the world as something other than ourselves, we imagine the supreme reality, which is ourself, to be something other than ourselves. When the mind subsides in waking and in samadhi, the prana subsides. The prana is said to be the gross form of the mind. Until the time of death, the mind keeps the prana in the body, and at the moment the body dies, it grabs it and takes it away. Therefore, pranayama is just an aid to restrain the mind, but will not bring about mananasa, the destruction, the annihilation of the mind. Then in the 9th paragraph he continues in the same line, talking about other types of practices. Just like pranayama, muti dhyana, that's meditation upon a form of God, mantra japa, repetition of mantras or names of God, and ahara niyama, restriction of our diet, are only aids that restrain the mind. And because he says just like pranayama, we have to connect it with the previous sentence, they restrain the mind, we have to infer they do not bring about its annihilation. They're aids, but they're not going to bring about the final goal we require. By both muti dhyana and mantra japa, the mind gains one-pointedness. Just as if someone gives a chain in the trunk of an elephant, which is always moving, that elephant will proceed grasping the chain without grasping anything else. So the mind, which is always moving, will, if trained in the practice of thinking of any one particular name or form, remain grasping it. That is, mantra japa and muti dhyana, they're ways of weaning the mind away from many thoughts and training it to cling to one thought. The Bhagavan says we then have to use that one-pointedness to cling to the root of all thoughts, which is the I thought. Because the mind spreads out as innumerable thoughts, each thought becomes extremely weak. For the mind which has gained one-pointedness, when thoughts progressively become reduced, and which has thereby gained strength, Atma-vichara will be easily accomplished. How muti dhyana and mantra japa are efficacious and how they help us to achieve Atma-vichara, if we try to train our mind to think of any other object, say a Coca-Cola can, first we will find it very difficult unless we are really passionately attached to drinking Coca-Cola. I've got two now. But why Murti Dhyana and Mantra Japa are efficacious? Because the Murti is God, and the mantra is the name of God. If we are devoted to God, our devotion to God will make it easy for us to continuously think of His form or His name. So what is actually the efficacy in Murti Dhyana Mantra Japa is not merely fixing the mind on one thing. What enables us to fix the mind on that one thing is the love. So it's the love in the practice of Murti Dhyana Mantra Japa which purifies the mind. And when the mind becomes purified, it understands that there's nothing external but is going to yield happiness, that real happiness lies within. And thereby the love for God matures into love for self, Swarupa Bhakti. Bhagavan here he indicates that elsewhere in Maharshi's Gospel and many other places. Bhagavan points out another step. Our love for God will eventually bring us to Guru, who is God in human form. The Guru then gives us the teaching and tells us God is not external to you, Guru is not external to you. The real God and real Guru is your own self, turn within. So the bhakti for God becomes Guru Bhakti, which eventually matures into Swarupa Bhakti. But Bhagavan doesn't deal with all that here, but understanding his teachings as a whole, we can read all that into this passage. And then he concludes this paragraph with an important sentence. Vaimita Sattvika Ahara Niyama. Ahara Niyama means restriction of what we eat, and Mitta Sattvika means moderate quantity, and Sattvika means what is conducive to the state of being. Sattva means beingness. So whatever is conducive to keeping the mind in the quiet state of being, that is Sattvika. So the food which will be conducive to keeping us in the state of being is what is Sattvika Ahara. So when Bhagavan was asked what he means by Sattvika Ahara, one thing he was absolutely insistent on, vegetarian diet is absolutely essential, because if we eat any animal products, that particularly the flesh of animals that have been killed, that cannot be conducive to keeping our mind in a state of beingness. When animals are killed, they feel fear and all that, and they suffer. Just like we are attached to our bodies, animals are also attached to their bodies. Just like we want to continue living in this body, they want to continue living in their body. But for the sake of consuming their flesh, people murder them. So that the flesh of a murdered living being, a sentient being like us, is not going to be conducive to putting our mind in a state of beingness. So, contrary to what someone remarked beforehand, Bhagavan doesn't recommend we eat meat. Bhagavan says, one thing, if you could do nothing else, at least avoid eating meat. Because by avoiding eating meat, we may not be able to save all the billions of animals that are being slaughtered every day for food, but at least we'll be saving one or two. We'll be not contributing to a huge harm, but humanity is doing to animals. So Bhagavan was very, very insistent about vegetarian diet. Among vegetarian diets, some foods are more sattvic than others. Often it is said garlic and onions are not sattvic, and obviously if you eat a lot of processed junk food, that's not going to be so sattvic. And you could say alcohol, okay, that's also vegetarian, but that's not going to be so sattvic. So just because the food is of plant origin doesn't necessarily make it sattvic, but if it's not of plant origin, it's definitely not sattvic. In Gita, it said what sort of food is sattvic. It's the food with lots of juice in it, lots of which is very fresh. So in other words, the fruits and the vegetables and those type of foods are the most sattvic, generally speaking. So Bhagavan said, by metta sattvic ahara niyama, which is the best among all the restrictions, the sattva guna, the quality of calmness, clarity, or beingness of the mind will increase, and thereby help and thereby help will arise for Atma-vichara, for self-investigation. Here Bhagavan says the sattva guna of the mind, because the original guna, the original quality of the mind is pure sattva, pure being. But the other two gunas are superimposed upon the sattva, that is the raja guna and the tama guna. But the original guna, the original quality of the mind is sattva. So that will increase by taking not only by taking the right sort of food, by avoiding the wrong sort of food, and by avoiding eating too much of even the right type of food, the sattva guna will increase, and that will help us to turn our mind inwards, to know who we really are. Then I think I'll read just a few more paragraphs, because unless anyone's got any particular questions. Yes?
So, Ramakrishna and Nisargadatta Maharaj both consumed flesh.
Ramakrishna,
Fish.
he had said in his gospel that after he saw Kali, he was never able to take fish again.
Then Ananda Mayi Ma cooked fish for her husband.
Did she eat it herself?
I don't know.
And did she, was she cooking fish up to the end? I think she would have given that up.
Well, I don't know what she did. All I have read that she cooked for her husband. Maybe.
Sure. I mean, people will find justification for all sorts of things. But can you tell me honestly, it is justified to kill another living being?
It's inevitable. I'm sure we kill vegetables when we eat them.
If you eat fruit, you don't kill them.
No, you eat vegetables, don't you?
And there's a difference between a vegetable and a sentient being. Animals are
They're all appearance.
Animals are very, very much like us. In the way they have similar desires to us, they have similar attachments to us, they feel pain in the same way as us. As far as suffering is concerned, the animal suffering is no different to human suffering. So we have no right for our gratification to cause suffering or to take the life of any other living being.
That includes fish, yeah? That includes fish.
That includes fish, certainly. Fish are, just because they live under the ocean, fish are no less... fish also have families, they also have husband, wife, children, they also have affection, they also have... just because they live in a different medium, they breathe in water instead of breathing in air, doesn't mean they're any less sentient beings than us.
Okay.
But the Bhagavan is called fish cucumbers, no? Sea cucumbers.
The Ganga Pushpam and all that. That is all. We can make all sorts of excuses, but if we are honest with ourselves, who wants to cause? Would we want suffering to be caused to us? But we don't want suffering to be caused to us? Why should we cause suffering to others?
No, a cow or cattle which are reared in a sensible way. I mean, the suffering so-called is at the moment of execution, as it were. But we're all going to die at some point.
Okay, so
I mean, not everybody tortures an animal.
Okay, so there are far too many people in the world. So many problems are caused. So should we select half of us should be executed? It's only at the moment of death.
I'm completely indifferent to it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't make a moral judgment.
Well, okay, but
I support euthanasia.
Okay, well, yes, if people want to, but for most of us, so long as we're reasonably healthy, we want to continue living. We're attached to our life. So, so long as we're attached to our life, I don't think we have any right. In fact, Bhagavan says, since we cannot create life, we have no right to take life. Bhagavan says in Guru Vaksha Kavai.
But who said we do not create life? We are reproducing all the time.
That is recreation, recreation. But that is not the original creation. Okay, we're creating the world every day we wake up from sleep, but we don't have that power that is usually attributed to God, the power of creation of life from nothing. So the point is, Bhagavan has made it very, very clear. If we want to progress in the spiritual path, we should not eat meat. If we are wise, we'll listen to his advice. If we don't want to, we can go the way of so many other people in the world. That's okay. Sooner or later, Bhagavan said, just like the birds, in the last verse of our Natchashtakam, Bhagavan said, just like the birds flying in the sky, sooner or later have to come back to the earth. And just like the water which is evaporated from the ocean, sooner or later has to form clouds, has to rain onto the mountains, has to form rivers and streams and flow back to the ocean, so also all of us will eventually get back there, one way or another. So it'll all happen, but if we want it to happen sooner rather than later, we'd be well advised to follow Bhagavan's advice, I think.
What about garlic and onions? Where does that become non-saturated?
They are said to excite passions, to agitate the mind. Bhagavan wasn't so particular about this. In fact, he used to tease his mother. Because people, some very orthodox people won't touch garlic or onion, but many of sadhus and others who were around Bhagavan were not so orthodox. So people used to bring onions and garlic to Skandashram. And Bhagavan used to tease his mother, see the corner of your sari has touched that onion, you have to go and take bath, it's polluted. Because Bhagavan was trying to wean her away from her excessive attachment. Because attachment to orthodoxy is attachment to, because I am born in this caste, I am a Brahmin, therefore I am pure. It's all rooted in body attachment. Bhagavan wanted to wean all of us away from our attachment to body. So because he was eventually to give his mother salvation, he had to wean her away from her attachments. So he used to tease her about such things. But generally it is said in yoga that it is better to minimize, particularly garlic, because it is said to excite passions. But we need not be too. I mean, it's not ethically wrong to eat garlic. But if you want your mind to be in a calm state, you may find, try it yourself, eat a few cloves of raw garlic and see what it does to your mind. You'll feel an immediate...
I would have the impression socially it's not acceptable. That's all. I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, try eating. When you cook garlic, it becomes more mild. Try eating a few cloves of raw garlic, and you'll find it will give an immediate rush to your mind. And if you sit then and try and attend to self, you'll find it a little bit more difficult to concentrate than it would normally be.
So would that apply to chili as well?
What?
Would that apply to chili?
Chili can also be an exciting passion. Generally, it is in yoga. I mean, these sort of things are more importance is attached to these sort of things in yoga. In Bhagavan's line, the main thing is vegetarian diet. But in yoga, they attach more importance to these things because they're trying to make the mind subside by an artificial means, by pranayama and such things. So these sort of things become more important in that context. But if we want to follow the path of self-inquiry, we can find out it's not only the quality of the food, it's the quantity of the food. So we can try ourselves, what quantity of food will keep my mind in a calm state? What quality of food will keep my mind in a calm state? Try it and see, try different types of food. And the more we eat a sattvic diet, the more our mind will become sensitive to the effects of the non-sattvic foods. So many people, when they follow a spiritual path, they may start off with a great liking for garlic or for chilies or for these sort of things, but they find as they progress on the spiritual path, they feel more and more inclined towards eating blander foods that are less exciting because whatever agitates the body also has an effect because the body has an effect on the mind. But there's no hard and fast rule on this. Find out what suits you, follow that. And also we shouldn't give too much. Because from our day-to-day experience, we can learn many things. But Bhagavan doesn't ask us to do great research on this, because there's only one thing he says we should be making research on, that is I. So we shouldn't become too preoccupied with the quality of the food we eat. So long as we are just fairly sensible, eat food that is not causing harm to any other living beings, and food that is not agitating our mind too much, and food that is not making our mind too dull also. If we eat very heavy foods or too much food, it makes the mind dull, tamasic. That also is to be avoided. Okay. So we learn by experience.
But in Ayurveda,
yes,
garlic is the medicinal properties. Is it taken
Bhagavan said garlic is very good for the body, not so good for the mind. But Bhagavan also has written verses on giving Ayurvedic or Siddha Vaidya medicines, writing the formulas for them in form of verses, and some of those he talks about garlic. So Bhagavan isn't wholly opposed to garlic, but use it sensibly. If the body needs it, use it as much as the body needs it. Don't overuse it to agitate your mind.
Why is there a problem with eating eggs? Because I can remember reading somewhere.
Well, yes, but Bhagavan was opposed to any. Because eggs are supposed to be a life form. It's a developing life. It's just like a baby in the womb. There are unfertilized eggs people talk about, but it is not natural for chickens to lay unfertilized eggs. Chickens lay unfertilized eggs only if kept in unnatural conditions by human beings.
I think he used to say that there was potential life in the
yes.
eggs, and that was the reason.
Not a potential life, but actually it's a developing life. It is a potential life.
It's not natural? Really, I always thought it was
What?
very natural.
What?
It's not natural for hens to lay eggs?
No, it's not natural for them to lay unfertilized eggs. Their eggs they usually lay eggs after fertilization.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Or it's normal unless you segregate hens and cocks. You cannot tell which eggs are fertilized, which eggs are not fertilized. It's only in the artificial conditions of modern agriculture, but you could possibly, with any one could guarantee and say this is an unfertilized egg. And from a health point of view, eggs are one of the most unhealthy foods they are. They're full of cholesterol, protein, fat, and foods which are not actually very good for the bodily health. And what is not good for the bodily health is usually not good for the mental health either.
Just to give some more insight over non-vegetarian food, non-veg food, when an animal is about to be chopped, it feels a lot of fright inside. It produces a lot of chemicals, or it produces a lot of negative hormones. And when we consume that, we are actually consuming negative hormones, which is in the body, in the blood of the animals. And we are actually consuming poison when we are consuming animal fat. So Bhagavan was also critical about plucking flowers. When Surya Nagama was actually plucking flowers for Shiva, one day she said she couldn't get flowers. So Bhagavan said, pinch yourselves each time, and then and see what you feel. So she said, should I pinch myself? Why? And he said, that's the feeling that the flowers are going to have when you pluck flowers from the tree, from the plants. So Bhagavan is equally critical about flowers or animals. So he did not. He was equally passionate towards trees. He was equally passionate towards animals. So
when they're outside the old hall, there are some mango trees, and people used to beat the mango trees to get make the mangoes fall. Yeah. Bhagavan got very angry about that. He said, "Let the mango. It's natural. When the mango is ripe, it will fall from the tree."
Right.
If we want to have an absolutely sattvic diet, the best thing is to eat only fruit that has fallen from trees, because nature has designed the edible fruit to be consumed, because it's a means of seed distribution. So we are actually doing the plant a service by eating its fruit.
Right.
Unfortunately, nowadays we have modern toilets, so the seeds get flushed down the toilet, which is a pity. But in a more natural condition that people used to live in, we would then go out into the fields or the woods, and the seed would be distributed. So if we want an absolutely sattvic diet, the windfall fruit is the best. But we sometimes have to make some compromises. But so long as we're not doing harm, either to others or to ourselves, compromise is acceptable.
On the delusion front,
yes.
See, I have my kid, so she's a delusion for me.
Sorry?
I have my kid, so when I see my kid, is she a delusion for me? Or I see everybody as a delusion?
She is as real as you are.
Yeah. So
you are the first delusion.
Yeah. Okay.
You're taking yourself to be this person you feel yourself to be, this body. That is the first delusion. Yeah. So long as that delusion so long as you take that delusion to be real, all the other delusions are equally real.
So that means the relationship itself is unreal, and the world is unreal.
Everything is unreal. But the one who has the relationship, the one who experiences the relationship, you are unreal. Yeah, as a person, that is. Yeah. But in this unreal person that you experience yourself to be, there is one element of reality. That is I. That is the only, according to Bhagavan, that alone is real. Nothing other than I is real.
So, as a body which holds your mind,
yes.
Even it holds the self, does it hold the self? That means I.
Yes.
So, as such, if I am not holding a body, there is no meaning of self. Is it the right statement to make?
No, it's not. Because the body is in sleep. We don't experience a mind and we don't experience a body. But we experience our existence.
Yeah, because my brain says, I sleep and I wake up in the morning. So it says, yeah, I slept and I woke up.
Your brain says, does it?
Yes.
Okay, when your body dies, what will your brain tell you?
Yeah, that's right. So
it's not the brain. The brain is just a lump of flesh.
So my question would be that something like that. Post your death, the self,
yes.
which is there in your body, leaves from the body.
Yes.
And it attains another body based on the predisposition it has.
That is not your real self. That is your mind or ego. Just like actually it doesn't leave one. We talk of the mind leaving one body and taking birth in another body. According to Bhagavan, actually what happens, this body we're now experiencing as I is a creation of the mind. Just like in dream, when you dream, You don't take birth in a new body in dream, do you? The body is produced from your imagination. So also this body you now experience as I is a product of your imagination. When this dream comes to an end, you'll dream another dream in which you imagine yourself as some other body.
So when you say self is not born, so
self is not born.
The body is born.
The body is well, yes. We just like we cannot experience our own death, we cannot experience our own birth. So long as as soon as the mind rises, it experiences the body as I. So the mind cannot exist without experiencing itself as a body. That is the nature of the mind.
The question would be something like, when I am in the mother's womb, so
yes.
The body is there. Is there the self there in that state?
I think when we ask questions like this, we're asking from the wrong point of view. We should, the idea that I was once a little fetus in my mother's womb is an idea I have now. But we can only talk about, we should only analyze our own experience, not the ideas we have about what we would have experienced before we experienced anything. So what is our experience now? Our experience now is when as soon as the mind rises, it experiences the body as I, and it sees this world through the 5 senses of that body. This is what we actually experience. So let us analyze this experience of ours. Do we experience this body, or this mind, or this world in sleep? In dreamless sleep? No. But we exist there.
Yeah.
So we experience our existence in 3 states, in waking, in dream, and in sleep. In waking, we experience this body as I. In dream, we experience some other body as I. If I and the body were identical, if 2 things are identical, if they're not 2 things but 1 thing, whatever is true of one must also be true of the other. Because they're not 2 different things, they're 1 thing. So if I was this body, I couldn't experience myself when I'm not experiencing this body. But I experience another body, I experience myself as another body in dream. So I cannot be either this body or the dream body. So, but in both waking and dream, we experience the mind as I. So am I therefore this mind? No, because in sleep, we don't even experience this mind. We only experience I. So we can understand by analyzing our own experience that the essence of what we really are is neither this body nor the mind. So all that remains in sleep, the only thing that we experience in sleep is our own being, I am. So that is the only thing that is real according to Bhagavan. Because what is real must always be real. And Bhagavan gives 3 definitions of reality. It must be permanent, eternal. It must be unchanging. Because if a thing changes, it's one thing at one time, another thing at another time. So which of those 2 things is real? What is real must always exist, it must never change. And the 3rd most important definition of reality the Bhagavan gave, it must be, in Tamil Bhagavan used a Sanskrit word actually, Swayam Prakasha, self-shining. What that means is, it must know its own existence. So, we think the world existed before I was born and it will exist afterwards. But does the world know its own existence? Does a tree, well no, let's say a building, does the building know that it exists? It doesn't. But we know that we exist. So whatever is real must experience its own existence. If its existence is only known by something other than it, because we cannot say anything exists if it's not experienced. If it exists only in the experience of something else, its existence is dependent on that thing. Therefore, for something is real only if it experiences its own existence. And of all the things that we experience, Can you tell me anything that experiences its own existence? In your experience, yourself. You may think, oh, this Michael's talking to me, he must also be experiencing his own existence because he's talking all these things. But actually this Michael, you see, is only a thought of yours. It's only something you are, a projection of your mind. How can you know that Michael is really sentient? A computer could be talking exactly the same thing, but we don't think the computer is sentient, do we? So we know only one consciousness. No one ever experiences more than one consciousness. So that one consciousness which we experience as I, we should make research on that. Bhagavan says if you make research on that, you will eventually find experience that that is the only thing that actually exists. But we don't, Bhagavan doesn't say, believe me. He says, no use believing, because belief is just again, a thought in the mind. Who is the one who is believing or not believing? Make research on that. Find out who is this I. So all this research about food that we were just talking about, that's all fine. Up to a certain point. But we shouldn't make too much research on any of these things. We should make research only on I. That is Bhagavan's recommendation. Yes?
I do have a problem in the sense that I mean, your argument comes across as a philosophical argument. It's like logical argument.
Yes.
To me, what relevance is this to spiritual practice? One of the problems I always had with the teaching of Ramana Maharshi, while acknowledging his realization, is you can intellectualize what he has actually realized.
Yes.
And you go on to all these endless arguments about
Yes.
am I the body, am I not the body,
Yes.
do I exist in my sleep?
Yes.
But to me, is that relevance? Because when you actually realize something, it's a tacit understanding
Yes.
beyond any kind of
Yes.
argument.
Yes.
So,
well, I think I think what you say is very true. Why we are drawn to Bhagavan's teachings? We somehow, even before all the rationalization, we have a gut feeling, oh, there's some truth in this. But we need a strong conviction. And the intellectualization there are two benefits in the intellectualization of it. One is, it helps to create a conviction, albeit at the surface level of the mind. But it helps to ward off many unnecessary thoughts, if we have a strong conviction that this is the truth. Because there are so many ideas, so many beliefs people have in this world. Unless we decide what we believe, we're going to be always frittering between one belief and another, whatever people tell us. One day someone will come and tell us, you have to believe in Jesus to be saved. We'll believe in Jesus. Then we meet a Muslim who says, no, you have to follow Muhammad and believe only in Allah. And we'll become a Muslim the next day. We'll constantly be changing. And then someone will tell us, no, there's no God at all. Enjoy your life. And we'll become an atheist. We have to decide. We all have to decide what we want to believe. We decide to a large extent by gut feeling. What feels right to us. But by intellectualizing, it helps to ward off, to free our mind of doubts about so many other possibilities. Okay, but so that is one benefit. The other benefit of having a good intellectual understanding of what Bhagavan has taught us is, we have to put this into... Bhagavan teachings is all about practice. The theory is only to help us in our practice. And if we don't understand clearly what Bhagavan is talking about, when he says that if we are still confused about the body being I or the mind being I, we may think there was a saint in the 19th century in Tamil Nadu called Ramalinga Swami. And Ramalinga Swami, one of his teachings was, see yourself. But the modern day followers of Ramakrishna, of Ramalinga Swami, they worship mirrors. Because their idea is, but Ramalinga Swami said, see yourself. So you shouldn't go to temple and worship any god. You should sit in front of a mirror and see yourself. That is worshipping God. That's their idea. Because they don't have that's not what he meant. When he said see yourself, he said see what you really are inside, not seeing the body. So having a proper intellectual understanding is necessary. It's necessary to understand that we're not this body, we're not this mind. If we think, okay, I understand I'm not this body, but I think I'm this mind, as many philosophers have concluded, we will then think that by watching our thoughts or observing the thoughts, we are observing ourselves. But Bhagavan says, no, these thoughts are not yourself. They're things you experience as other than yourself. Who is it who experiences these thoughts? So he brings us back to the I. So for that also, this intellectual discrimination is useful. But there's a thing called Sastra Vasana. There's some people who have so much taste in this philosophy, they go on and on reading and thinking of these things, they never actually put it into practice. So we have to use discrimination. We have to use philosophy to the extent to which it's useful, and not overuse it so that it takes up our whole life. Is that a useful answer or not a useful answer?
I think you have. You have answered most of it. The only problem with, I get your point about having an intellectual ground.
Yes.
But some people would just intellectualize for the rest of their life
and
analyze it without actually practicing his teaching.
Yes, it's very. For people with a certain bent of mind, that's very easy. I have to say about myself, I have a taste in philosophy. I have a taste because I've always questioned things and wanted answers to things. So I do have a taste in this. So I do sometimes, I find, have a tendency to spend too much time thinking about the philosophical side of it when I should be putting it in practice. That is a weakness I have. So it's a very real danger, I admit. But that doesn't mean we should throw the philosophy out the window. Bhagavan has given us many very useful ideas. We should take those ideas, apply them properly. It should encourage us to put it into practice. Yes?
I wanted to ask you, is this teaching that all that we see, the world, etc., universe is unreal, and intermediate position, a sort of teaching fiction? In the end, you can see the world as the self. Is that a possible end point? Another way of looking at it?
You can't see the world as self until you see yourself as self. So long as you see yourself as this body, you will see the world as all these names and forms, all these physical things.
Yes.
If you want to see the world as self, first see yourself as self. When you see yourself as self, you will see that self alone exists.
So, in a way, the idea that the world is unreal is just a teaching fiction, just something that you assume at a particular stage of your spiritual development. Is that correct? Or are you saying it's absolutely true, this world is totally unreal? According to
Bhagavan, the world is nothing but thoughts. The world is nothing but a projection of our own mind.
Yes, but...
So, only so long as the mind exists, the world, it experiences the world. The state of self-experience, Atma-vichara, is the state in which we know I alone am, nothing else is. So there's no mind, and because there's no mind, there's no world, there's no body, there's no God, there's nothing, there's only I. That is the absolute truth.
Well, the question I'm asking is...
But you don't have to, this is what Bhagavan tells us, we don't have to believe that. If you don't want to believe it, you need not believe it. And even if we believe it, it's not really much use because it's just an idea in our mind. Until we actually experience what we really are, our idea that self alone exists, nothing, everything else is unreal, it's all thoughts in our mind. Bhagavan tells us that to help us wean our mind away from the world, so we don't
seek. What I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is he telling us
His aim is to wean our mind away from the world in order for us to turn within and get that experience. But he does tell us, if you get that experience, that Swarupanavara, the experience of your own self, you will find you alone exist. There will be no world, nothing.
Yeah, but I alone exist, but as the totality. So, and you see what I'm getting at is that-
totality. What is the totality of one?
Well, I don't know. But
So
for example,
there is no multiplicity. Advaita is a denial of all multiplicity, all differences,
yes, so
all diversity.
cannot we sort of think of picture this totality, which at present we take as all separate individuals, as just the whole appearing as that? In other words,
It is, yes. But I mean, see this in the 7th paragraph, which I which I read at the beginning. Bhagavan says, that which actually exists is only Atma-swarupa. The world, soul, and God are fabrications in it, like silver we see in the shower. These three appear simultaneously and disappear simultaneously. Swarupa alone is the world, Swarupa alone is I, Swarupa alone is God. Everything is Swarupa. He says everything there. What he is saying when he says everything is Swarupa, he's actually saying there is no everything, there is only Swarupa. Because Swarupa is only one. Self is only one.
yes.
So if everything is self, everything is one, then there is no everything, there's only one. In another place in Uludunapadu, Bhagavan says, Ahandai undayin anatum undahi. If the ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Ahandai indru anatum. If the ego is not, nothing else is. Nothing is. Everything is not. Adalal ahande yabamam. Therefore, the ego is everything.
Yes, what I'm getting at is that...
So all this everything, this world we see, but we want to see as self, it's all an expansion of our own mind, our own ego. What I feel is, if I may say so, what I feel you're trying to get at, what you're trying to say is, you want to eat your cake, but you still want to keep the cake. It's a nice idea. It's a nice theory. If believing that is possible encourages you to eat the cake, by all means believe it. Eat the cake first and then see if you still have a cake remaining.
The reason why I'm saying this is that Bhagavan seems to interact with all these separate individual, or what we take as separate individual beings. You know, he loved the animals, he loved his devotees, he got angry with them. That's the appearance according to the written record.
Yes.
So
Bhagavan.
So he's obviously.
Bhagavan says many things because, as a concession to our ignorance, the main thing Bhagavan says is, don't see me as this body. I am not this body. In my experience, I am not this body. Because we are not ready to accept that teaching, we see Bhagavan as a body, and then Bhagavan comes down to our level and says, yes, I see the world, I see this, and I talk to you and everything. But actually, Bhagavan doesn't see us at all. He does see us, but he sees only the real us. He doesn't see us as a person. But by his not seeing us as a person, that is the greatest act of grace. Because if he sees us as a person, he'll be giving reality to what is unreal. So, thank God, he doesn't see us as a person. He sees us only as self.
I want to ask you that what is the practice of self-inquiry if it is not to be just a thought? I think one of the things which perhaps getting at is that very often when we think about the reality of the world ourselves and so on, or even when we practice self-inquiry, there is a tendency for it to be just a thought. But there is a way in which it is not, but obviously it is not a thought. It is something deeper. So what would be the method in which you get the...
Even Bhagavan sometimes even the word dhyana means thought. And Bhagavan talks of Swarupa dhyana. He also talks in Who Am I, not only of Swarupa dhyana, he also talks of Atma-vichara, thought of self. But in what sense it is a thought? What is a thought? Whenever we pay attention to anything other than I, that is a thought. So if we pay attention to I, we can, depending on how we choose to define our terms, we can either say attending to I is a thought, it's a thought of I, or we can say it's a state of thoughtlessness. Both are true, it just depends on what you mean by the terms you're using. If you use thought in the very strict sense of thought is the attention we pay to something other than I, then self-attention is not a thought. If we use a thought, if we broaden our definition of thought to mean whatever we attend to, that is a thought of that thing, then attending to I is a thought of I. But it's different to all other thoughts. Because whereas other thoughts feed the mind, make the mind rise, thinking of I, in other words, attending to I, makes the mind subside. Because the mind rises only by grasping things other than itself. If we attend only to I, the mind is not grasping anything, so it subsides.
I guess what I'm asking is that what is could you recommend or could you explain the way of attending to I, the nature of self-inquiry itself?
When Bhagavan was asked that, he said, do you need to be shown the way inside your own home? You don't. It cannot be. Words are only pointers. Words are efficacious only to a certain extent, pointing us in the right direction. But only our own experience will tell us what self-attention is. Moreover, if any person who is still practicing Atma-vichara is self-attention, but any person who is practicing Atma-vichara does not know what self-attention is. Because that is why Bhagavan called it vichara. Vichara means investigation. We have a vague idea what self-attention is. We are coming close to self-attention. But if we, for one moment, attend to self correctly, if we, for one moment, experience pure self-attention, that is Atma-jnana. So when we practice vichara, we are investigating, trying to find out what is that state of self-attention. So the only way to find out what is self-attention is to attend to self. And the more we practice and the more we do it, the more we will discover. And what we discover cannot be said in, cannot be put into words, cannot be put into thoughts even. But we will gain more and more clarity of self-awareness. It'll be more and more clear to us what self-attention is, what self-awareness is, what self-consciousness is, what we really are.
Would you say that the simplest way to explain it might be just to be as quiet as possible at times?
That is a good way of explaining it. Bhagavan often used to say, Summa iru, just be. That is the highest teaching according to the Tamil Vedanta tradition. And Bhagavan often used to say that. But the problem with that is, does any of us know what it is to just be? Because we don't know, we have to investigate. So investigating to find out what is that state of just being is vichara. So who is it who wants to just be? Who am I? Whatever way we come to it, practicing vichara is a state of just being. But in order to experience what is a state of just being, we have to practice Atma-vichara. Also, because we don't really know what it is just to be, we can say, oh, I'm experiencing great peace now. But we're still aware, I'm sitting here enjoying this wonderful peace. We're aware of the body because we're still thinking we're sitting there. So we are not actually in a state of perfect, but our attention is moving away from ourselves towards the body, towards this idea we have of great peace. So the state of just being, again, just like we don't really know what is self-attention, we don't really know what is just being. So long as we are trying just to be with an investigative mind, with an eagerness to find out what does Bhagavan mean when he says just be. It's not just an idea, oh, I'm now at peace. It's nothing like that. So long as we think I'm at peace, we're not really at peace because our mind is agitated by that thought, I'm at peace.
Would you say that it's helpful to pay attention to the right side at the time that one is...
Right side of what?
Sort of the right side of the chest or whatever, the heart.
And the chest is where? Where is the chest? It's part of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And body is part of the world. And Bhagavan has said body is a thought, world is a thought, right side is a thought, left side is a thought.
So
Bhagavan mentioned about the right side of the chest. Only all this started in about the year 1917 or 18, around that time. At that time, Kaviranta was still a very enthusiastic devotee of Bhagavan, and he used to bring all his followers to Bhagavan. But as Bhagavan often said later, he didn't actually like Bhagavan's teachings. He didn't like Advaita. There was one thing he didn't like, it was Advaita, because he had so many ambitions. He wanted to restore the old Vedic Dharma. He wanted to, and he believed that in the Vedas there's so many powerful mantras are there. And he read all the stories about the powerful Vedic rishis. So he thought if we can regain this power of the power of mantras that is taught in the Vedas, we'll be able to drive British out of India, we'll be able to reassert the Vedic Dharma, they even had plans for conquest of the whole world, and they had plans for which of his disciples was going to be governor of America, which was going to be governor of Europe. They had all these plans. And they even had plans, they were going to build, around Arunachal, they were going to build a big town in the shape of a Sri Chakrumera, and that was going to be the capital of the world. So he had all these wonderful plans. So for him, Bhagavan's talk of Advaita, he loved Bhagavan. He was so devoted to Bhagavan because he understood Bhagavan is the real thing. But he didn't like what Bhagavan taught. So he had so many ideas about yoga and mantras and all these things. So in around 1917-18, he and his disciples came and asked Bhagavan a series of questions. And at that time, one of the questions they asked is, you talk about the heart. Where is the heart? Is it the Anahata chakra, the heart chakra? And Bhagavan said, no, the heart I'm talking about is not the Anahata chakra, the heart is self. Then where in the body is it? And Bhagavan then explained, the body is in self, not the self in the body. So many things, they weren't ready to accept that. But they said, but what is the point in the body? The point of the seat of self in the body? Then Bhagavan said, the Sushumna Nadi is usually described as going up to the Sahasrara, the 1,000-pillar lotus, that's the 1,000-petal lotus, that's the brain. And that is considered the highest point for the yogi. And then the yogi has to break out of the skull and go and merge with the akasa or whatever. That is the yogi view. But Bhagavan says it is not actually so. The Sushumna Nadi is like a question mark. It doesn't end with the Sahasrara. It comes down and it terminates in the heart on the right-hand side of the chest. When Bhagavan said this, he is talking from their point, from their level, from a level of yoga, nadis, body, all these things. And what Bhagavan said is, from relative to the body, when the eye rises, it rises from the heart on the right hand side of the chest up to the brain. From the brain it spreads throughout the body. This is all relative to the body. And Bhagavan said when Bhagavan had that, what is often called his second death experience, but Bhagavan said it was his final death experience, when he was about 32 on Atma-vichara and the tortoise rock. When Bhagavan described that, why that is usually called his second death experience, because nobody witnessed all the other times that Bhagavan's body had died. But between the age of 16, when his body became lifeless for 20 minutes, he had a number of episodes like that. But only Bhagavan knew about that. But this time when he had this final death experience on Atma-vichara, Swami was with him. And Swami actually saw Bhagavan's body going blue and turning cold. So he was holding Bhagavan. And Bhagavan said, so people asked Bhagavan a lot about that experience. Bhagavan said, I was aware of the surrounding, I was aware of Swami holding me, but I had no desire to come back to the body at all. But suddenly, like a flash of lightning, I felt the eye consciousness shooting from the right side of the chest up into the brain and coursing throughout the body. Bhagavan said, all this is true relative to the body. This is not, Bhagavan is here talking as if he had a body, as if he experienced all these things. There's I remember in an old mountain path, in the mountain path they sometimes give fillers. There was one very nice filler back in the late 70s, early 70s, sometime like that. It was a translation of a passage from one of the untranslated writings of Suri Nagama. And there she records, once some learned pundits had come and were talking with Bhagavan for several days about all these nadis, chakras and all these things. And Bhagavan was patiently answering all their questions. Hearing all this, Suri Nagama was feeling very dejected because she didn't understand all these Sanskrit words. What are these nadis, what is this Sahasrara, this Shushumna, all these things. She didn't understand any of these terms. So she waited till Bhagavan till those learned people had gone out, and then she said to Bhagavan, oh no, I think she was just sitting there looking dejected, and Bhagavan asked her, what is it? And she said, Bhagavan, you're talking all these things. When will I ever know about these things? I'm not able to understand all these things. And Bhagavan said, why should you worry about all these things? They're all imagination. And she said, what? It's imagination. Bhagavan said, when the body itself is an imagination, what are all these chakras and all these things? It's all imagination. So this heart on the right-hand side of the chest, Bhagavan first said that to Kavyaganta and his followers. Then people asked him, is there any scriptural authority for this? Then Bhagavan said, it is mentioned somewhere in some Atma-Upanishad, there's some mention of it. And also Bhagavan found in a Malayalam translation of an Ayurvedic text called Ashtanga Hridaya, the Eightfold Heart, there is mention about this, and he translated those two Malayalam verses. Originally they would have been Sanskrit slokas, but Bhagavan had only seen it in the Malayalam version. He translated those two verses into Tamil, and they became part of Ulinaptu and Abandhan. But Bhagavan said on many occasions, heart means self. It doesn't mean any point in the body. And when in talks, at one point when someone asked Bhagavan, should I meditate on the right side of the chest in order to meditate on self? Bhagavan said meditation shouldn't be on the right or the left. It shouldn't be up or down. Meditation should be on I. That's all. If the heart is here, this point, then we get disconnected from it in dream, because in dream, we get connected with some other self, because we have another body there. And in sleep, we're not connected with anybody. Then how can we meditate on self in sleep? Whereas according to Bhagavan, What we are trying to discover in in Atma-vichara is that which is always real, that which we're always experiencing, that I which is always experiencing waking, dream and sleep. So it cannot be anything to do with the body, it cannot be anything to do with the mind. It is the essence of everything.
It reminds me from what you're saying, maybe the only way. I think it was once that Mr. Gadatamanat, I think he said that maybe the way to look at it is simply that what were you before you were born? And sometimes that kind of a thought can just throw you back into a little bit of a space of spaciousness.
That's a little bit like in Zen, they have koans. They're questions which sort of make you think, oh yes, it sort of stop you and make you think, what is this I? But ultimately, the ultimate question we all have to come back to is, what am I? Who am I? That's all Bhagavan asks us to investigate.
Could we say that in reality, in relative knowledge, the spiritual heart is on the left, but in reality, the spiritual heart is neither inside or outside?
Exactly. Everything is inside the heart, if at all we want to have inside and outside. Because the heart is self, and self is the infinite reality. Where is any limit for it?
That's right. It cannot be located anywhere.
But so long as we are thinking in terms of any time or any place, we are away, our attention is on something other than I. Bhagavan said the only, among the three times, the only time that actually exists is the present, because past and future are just thoughts that occur in the present. So among the three times, the only time we should take interest in is the present. In Tamil, they call what we call three persons in English: first person, second person, third person. In Tamil, they call the three places. So Bhagavan said, among the three places, it's only the first place, the self place. That is the only place we should be concerned with. So that I is always here and it's always now. So we shouldn't worry about any other place or any other time. Concentrate on the here and now, what actually is now. And if we try to find out what actually is now, no thought can rise there, because thought happens in time. Thought is a movement through time. But if you try to find out what is the exact present moment, it's a fraction of a moment before the present moment is past. A fraction of a moment after is ahead of us is future. So if you try to find out what actually is the present moment, it's an infinitesimal. Actually, the present, there's nothing there as present. It's not a time. Present is not a time. It is the interface between the past and the future. If we try to find out what is that, all that exists there is I. So in the present, if we can really come to the present moment, only I will remain. Because when you come to the present moment, there can be no thought, because there's no time for thought to occur. And when there's no thought, what remains is I. So attending to the present moment is another clue Bhagavan used to say. Sometimes just be in the present moment. Find out, what are you now? Who am I now? What is it I'm experiencing at this very moment?
Yeah, sure. It's 3:30, so we'll have the tea break, and before so we'll ask Rhoda to lead us in the mantra.
To focus on who am I, and also after some time reach a stage where there are no thoughts at all. I find it very difficult to see the thought, any thought, arising out of the heart and subsiding in the heart, because I experience that I thought is always there. It's always there, except when you are asking, when you are focusing on who am I. when you're focusing who am I, to that extent I thought is not there at that time. But rest of the time, I thought is always there. From the moment you get up in the morning till you go to bed. So how does one experience the arising of the I thought in the heart and its subsidence to these two? And also I noticed that I thought is arisen after it has arisen. I never noticed the arising of the I thought, the moment it arises. Any thought, not just I thought, any thought. One cannot experience its arising.
If we were able to detect it at the moment of rising and hold at that point, it wouldn't rise. So where I thought arises through pramada, through inadvertence. It's through inattentiveness that it rises. So we cannot catch the moment it rises.
You can't catch.
But as soon as we've noticed it rises, if we turn our attention towards it, it will subside.
But normally one notices after it has already arisen.
Yes, but doesn't matter. It may be after, but as soon as you've noticed that it's risen, if you focus your attention only on I,
yes,
it will then subside.
Yes, I agree. That's
so we can experience the subsidence. We can't experience the arising.
Yes, but I cannot experience in the heart.
What do you mean by in the heart?
It's supposed to be, the thought is supposed to arise from the heart, in the heart.
You mean a place in the body?
Yeah.
But the body itself is a thought, according to Bhagavan. The body itself is a thought, and the heart, there's two digits to right front center of the chest, is also a thought.
Yes.
But when Bhagavan talks of heart, 99.9% of times he's talking only about self. Heart is a synonym for self. Okay. It's only in the context of people who ask about a place in the body which he talks about the right side of the chest. But that's not what he's normally talking about when he talks about heart. Heart is self. So wherever you see Bhagavan saying heart, take it to mean self. And forget about the body, right hand side, left hand side, up, down, inside, outside.
Arising from self.
From self. That's what Bhagavan means.
Subsiding in the self.
Yes.
That is possible.
Because only after the I thought rises, the body comes into existence.
Yes.
How can you then say, but how can the I thought arise from a place in the body when the body doesn't exist? But our mind is the mind doesn't exist, it cannot exist independent of the body. Let's say the body, but that doesn't necessarily mean this body, it can mean any body. Mind has to have a body in order to rise and function. It has to take itself to be a body. So the body comes into existence as soon as the mind comes into existence. So, we are so soaked in thinking in physical terms, in terms of a body, that it's difficult for us to think beyond that. But what Bhagavan is asking is, think beyond it. Go beyond this. What is this I?
If you concentrate on I for a sufficiently long time, you develop some kind of stillness.
If you concentrate on I, that itself is stillness.
Yes, that.
If our attention is always on I, that is perfect stillness.
But then, even if the stillness is there is an observer of the stillness. Since you are aware that the stillness is there.
The stillness is, yes, the observer of the stillness is the stillness.
Yeah.
There's no duality in that state. So long as you take the stillness to be something other than you, the mind is still there.
Yeah.
That stillness isn't the stillness Bhagavan is talking about. So long as there's any bheda, any differentiation, if some people say, oh, I experienced peace when I was meditating. That peace they experienced, because it's something which comes and goes, it's not what they really are. So that isn't the peace that Bhagavan asks us to experience. That's a mental peace. It's a relative state of calm, a relative calmness of mind. But that's not the real peace. The real peace is the peace which is self. And that doesn't come or go. That always is.
sorry, Michael. If we are trying to look for the self,
Yes.
are there any prerequisites that are required?
In what sense?
Because it seems to be, we all say we are all looking for ourselves, looking for the self within us.
Yes.
Is there, like, in the point that saying we are all carrying our own vessels? Each person has their own vessels, is to give them up.
Yes.
Now, if each individual person knows his faults or her faults, and if they overcome those faults, are we on the path of going into the process of looking into self?
2 or 3 things. Firstly, you started by saying looking for self.
Yeah.
As if self is something that you don't know already. We are not actually looking for self. What Bhagavan asks us to do is to look at self.
At self, fine.
Because we already know what we experience now as I, that is self. There is no self other than this I. But we have mixed other things in onto it. So if we look only at this I, the other things will drop off.
Well, let us say
about the vasanas, we all, so long as the mind is there, it has vasanas, it has dispositions, tendencies. And we are all aware of our own faults. And we want to overcome our faults. But the only way to do it is if you have a tree and you want to get rid of the tree, it's blocking the sunlight, the tree. If you just chop off the leaves and branches, what's going to happen? They're going to sprout again and again. So trying to deal with our faults is a bit like that. What Bhagavan asks us to do, he said there's only one way to get rid of this tree of the ego, cut the root.
Okay.
So Bhagavan is not concerned with us becoming very pure. Bhagavan said very little about leading a pure life. Obviously, if we go and lead a very unrighteous life or debauchery or anything, that's going to be a big distraction away from what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So obviously that's not good. So naturally, if we are really intent on following this path, we will tend to live a purer life than we would otherwise. But purity is not trying to live a pure life is not what Bhagavan asks us to aim for. He says, to whom are all these impurities? If you find out the truth of yourself, you'll find out these impurities never existed.
Okay. So in other words, just keep pursuing it.
Yeah. Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and everything will be added unto you."
Yeah.
Krishna said, if you're devoted to me alone, I will provide all the yoga kshema. That's all the spiritual and worldly, whatever you need for the maintenance of your body, and all the spiritual benefits will be given. So we should concentrate only on knowing I. Everything else will be added.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, in that process, of seeking for I,
yes,
the pitfalls that come along, just take them along. Just take them as they come along. Don't try to say,
Who experienced these pitfalls?
The personality, isn't it?
Yes. No, I'm not asking for an answer. I'm saying that is the practice. Whatever pitfall we come across, who is experiencing this pitfall? It's I. So actually, we whatever terrible pitfall we come across, even if we go to hell or wherever, we can never leave the I behind. So if we're in hell, let's ask who is experiencing this hell. So whether we're in heaven or hell, it doesn't matter. What matters is knowing the I who is experiencing that heaven or hell.
So there's various prayers that I've seen, where it's not relevant, but just in a context, where a person descends into a different realm and rises again from different. This is the process we're talking about. You're going through the actual ritual. I call it a ritual to find myself. Is that the process?
But there is nothing so purifying as self-inquiry. It is the most purifying thing we can do.
Yeah.
It's not really doing, it's a being, but it's the most purifying practice.
Well, I was just wondering, people like Krishnamurti, when they went to Ramana, and, asked Ramana, what can you give me? And he said to him in return, are you ready to receive what I'm going to give you?
Yes.
So I mean, what was that? Was it a joke, or was it you're not ready for it yet?
Bhagavan didn't make any judgment. He asked the question, are you ready for it?
Is that a straightforward statement, or is it for a...
It's a question. Bhagavan, that person asked Bhagavan, give me moksha.
Yeah.
Or can you give me moksha? Bhagavan said, can you receive it? Are you ready to receive it? Bhagavan can give moksha to us at any moment. He can give you moksha now, if you want it. But we don't want it. So long as we are in this state of ajnana, we are in it because this is what we want. It's our choice. Bhagavan never forces us to remain in ajnana. He has shown us the way to experience jnana here and now. The fact we don't experience it is because we don't want it. So the whole practicing self-inquiry is just to purify our mind in order to make us want that more and more and more, until one day our love for that, our desire for that will consume us.
Okay, so it's okay. It's all different scales for each individual person.
Yes.
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bhagavan gave different type of spiritual instructions to different people based on their spiritual qualification.
Yes.
Now he straight away said about inquiry to some people, and to some people he went down to lower levels, and
Bhagavan of his own accord never recommended any sadhana. Bhagavan answered people's questions. Sadhuam once told me, if people came to Bhagavan and said, Bhagavan, I'm doing puja or japa or dhyana, is this good? Bhagavan said, yes, it's good. If they come to Bhagavan and said, Bhagavan, I don't know what to do, what should I do? He would say, do self-inquiry. If they come to Bhagavan and say, Bhagavan, I'm not able to do anything, Bhagavan asks you, who asked you to do anything? Keep quiet, surrender. So it's according to the questions we ask Bhagavan, he gives answers. But Bhagavan doesn't actually teach any sadhana. If at all he teaches any sadhana, it is the sadhana of self-inquiry.
What is meant by a matured soul? In a lot of this, in a lot of books I've read,
yes,
matured soul. Who's
a mature soul is a person who has great love to know self, whose mind has been purified. So long as we have a lot of worldly desires, desire to experience this or that, our mind is immature. The more our mind is purified of such desires, and thereby gains love to know self, to that extent we are mature. So mature is a synonym for purity of mind. The purer our mind, the less we have desires for anything other than self, the more real love we have to know self, which are two sides of the same thing. The more we love to know self, the less we will desire other things. The less we desire other things, the more we'll desire to know self. That is purity of mind or maturity of mind. But we don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
I can assure you, I am the most immature, impure mind, and probably most of us can say the same about ourselves. We all know our own defect, so we don't have to wait. Okay, I'll wait till my mind becomes mature, and then I'll do self-inquiry. If we wait, we'll be waiting forever. We have to jump into the deep end now. Why Bhagavan doesn't recommend other sadhanas? If people want to do other sadhanas, he says, yes, very good, do that. But he said, all other sadhanas, that other sadhanas, other things we can do fall into two categories. Either they're kamyata or nishkamyata. If they're kamyata, they're leading us in the opposite direction, but sooner or later, if we continue along the kamyata path, we'll sooner or later become so sick and tired of all these worldly pleasures and the frustration of not getting what we want and everything, we'll begin to look for something more. Then we're ready to come to a nishkamyata path. Once we come to nishkamyata path, whatever nishkamya karmas we do, whether it's puja, japa, or dhyana, they all nishkamya karmas done by body are puja. It may be helping your neighbor or taking care of animals, doing whatever, any type of service. It all comes under actions of the body. That's all puja. It's all good worship of God. Whatever practice you do by speech, spiritual practice, that comes under japa, whether you're chanting hymns or whatever it may be. So long as it's done without desire, that's nishkamya japa. Or if you meditate, and any type of meditation, if your meditation is genuinely nishkamya, and it's not self-inquiry, that is a nishkamya dhyana. So all types of sadhana fall into kamyata is not really sadhana, but all practices, let's say, fall under either kamyata, which is what most of us are doing most of the time in the outside world, or they're nishkamyata, or it's not an action, it's not a karma at all, self-inquiry. These are the three possibilities. Of these, karmiya karmas don't purify the mind directly, but they eventually, by following that path, we eventually become tired of that. In that sense, they purify the mind. They bring you to a point where you've just had enough. It's not actually purifying the mind, but it brings you to a realization, I'm not going to get happiness through all these things. And that qualifies you to come to the nishkamya path. Once you're on the nishkamya path, you're actually ready to come straight to self-inquiry, if you're willing to do it. Because the nishkamya karmas are a very roundabout way of getting the purity of mind. If you want to get the purity of mind in the quickest possible way, vichara is the best, it's the quickest way you can get it.
And in Arunachala Pancharatham, the third verse says that with that blemishless mind,
yes,
one does inquiry.
Yes.
That
doesn't mean you have to have a blemishless mind to do self-inquiry, because if you turn your attention towards I, at that moment your mind is blemishless. So we shouldn't put off self-inquiry thinking that we need purity of mind. The very fact that you have an interest in self-inquiry, a taste to at least try a little, means you've at least to that extent got a little bit of purity of mind, a little ray of a little spark of that Swapna Bhakti has been kindled in your heart by Bhagavan's grace. Fan that, forget everything else, forget all your impurities. Just that little spark of purity that is there, that's been kindled by Bhagavan, fan that. And the way to fan it is by self-attention.
How does one get the grace of Bhagavan? When we know that the grace, we are experiencing grace, how does one realize that?
That is not the issue. The issue is, how do we avoid Bhagavan's grace? Bhagavan's grace is always there. But we are very, very clever at avoiding Bhagavan's grace, obstructing Bhagavan's grace. His grace is always there. There's one verse in Guru Vachaka Kavai in which Bhagavan says that he's indirectly referring to people who blame God for not bestowing grace. He says the blame of not bestowing grace is not to be blamed on the ever-gracious God. It is to be blamed on us who are not gracious to attend to him. Because he's always existing there in our heart as I. If we fail to attend to him, it's not he who's being ungracious to us, it's we who's being ungracious to him. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, the grace of three people are needed. Grace of God is always there. Grace of Guru is always there. It's only the grace of the jiva which is lacking, your own grace. Yes?
Yeah, there seems to be a problem with when you are the doer and when you're not the doer. At what point can you actually say, I am not the doer, regardless of what you do?
If you, so long as you say, I am not the doer, you are the doer. Because the state of not being the doer is the state of being self. So long as we are a mind, we feel that I am thinking, I am talking, I am sitting, I am standing, I am walking. The doership is there. Why Bhagavan said about doership? He said it's not the action itself which is the bondage. Because we can go and sit in a cave doing nothing, but we're still not free of karma, because we still got this, the doership. I am sitting in this cave. That's why Bhagavan said it's the doership, it's not the karma is the problem, it's the doership is the problem. It's the identification with the body and mind, but are the instruments of action. And in Ulivanaptu, Bhagavan says, if we are the doer of actions, we will have to experience the resulting fruits. But if we inquire, who is the doer of actions, that doer will subside, and along with him, or him or her, all the three karmas will be shed. Because the karmas depend upon a karta. The karmas depend upon the doer, karta.
Okay.
Yes?
So when you're practicing self-inquiry,
yes,
does it sort of start off as a series of questions? Because you're continuously asking, something happens.
When it is expressed in words, either in writing or in speech, it takes the form of a question. But Bhagavan didn't actually ask us to question who am I. He asked us to investigate who am I.
So you investigate by just kind of looking.
By looking, I was just saying to some other people, if I give you a book and said find what is in this book, you don't sit and question what is in this book, what is in this book. You open the book and look inside. So when Bhagavan says investigate who am I, we should look inside and find out what is this I. He's not asking us to question who am I.
It might involve watching what's happening to your thoughts and your sensations in the body or whatever.
No, because they are all part of your experience. But who is experiencing those things?
So you ask yourself that's the
yeah, you can. Sometimes it may be useful to ask a question just to remind yourself. Yeah. But that question itself is not the inquiry, is not the investigation. But that is just the reminder to turn your attention back towards the I.
It's not a verbal thing.
It's not verbal,
it's
no.
Not really there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's not wrong to occasionally ask yourself, who's thinking these thoughts? Who's experiencing all this? It's not wrong. But don't take that to be the inquiry. Because you can sit repeating who am I, but one said don't make it like a mantra, like a japa.
So is it more like just being vigilant?
Yes, it's being vigilant about, being ever vigilant, remembering that I am. Bhagavan says in Who Am I, in one sentence, he says, if we can hold on to continuous, to ceaseless self-remembrance, until we attain self, that alone is sufficient. So just remembering I am, that's all that we need to do. It's so simple. But it appears difficult because we don't want to do it, because we've got much more interest in we've got this beautiful world outside. Who wants to be looking inside of this boring eye?
But then it seems to me sometimes that you're a bit like, it's an endless sort of vicious circle, because it's like you're sitting there and you might you're being vigilant. Then
yes.
It's like, well, who's being vigilant? You know what I mean? And it just goes on and on.
Yes, yes, yes. There's a nice story Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to say. There was a poor woodcutter, and every day he used to go to the outer edges of the wood and cut firewood and carry a big heavy load of firewood to the market and sell it, and just get enough to maintain his family. One day when he came to the edge of the forest, there was a sadhu sitting there meditating. So he very respectfully bowed to the sadhu and started chopping his wood. And the sadhu said, "Don't chop this, go deeper inside." So he's a simple God-fearing man, so he took the sadhu's word and he went a bit deeper inside. And there he found there wasn't just firewood, there was some nice good quality wood. So he cut one tree down, he took that to the market, and for the first time in his life, he made more money than he needed for the day's food and clothing and shelter for his family. So he was very happy. He thought, if I go in every day and I make myself, I'll be able to make 2 rupee profit every day. At the end of the year, I'll have 700 rupees, and after 10 years, I'll have 7,000 rupees. He thought, well, he probably didn't calculate because he was too simple for that. But he just thought, if I go and cut these same trees every day, so he went back to the sadhu and he said, "Thank you, Swami, I cut such and such a tree. I'm so happy now." And the sadhu said, "Go deeper." So he went a bit further into the forest that day, and he found a sandalwood tree. He cut down the sandalwood tree, and that day he made a huge profit. He was very, very happy then. So next day he went back and he said thank you to the sadhu. He said, "I cut this sandalwood tree and I made so much profit. Now my family are very happy." And the sadhu said, "Go deeper." And he went a little deeper and he found a silver mine. So he came home carrying all this silver, and his family were very, very happy. So the next day he went back again to the sadhu. He says, "Swami, I found all this silver. Now my family are so happy." And the sadhu said, "Go deeper." And he went deeper and he found a gold mine. And he was so happy, he had lots of gold now. And the next day when he went back to the sadhu said, "Go deeper." And eventually he found a big diamond. And then he had no more need to go, because he had found what... So we shouldn't be satisfied until we attain that diamond of self-knowledge. Always go deeper, go deeper, go deeper.
And we'll know when we found it.
And about the term you use, vicious circle. Yes, it is a vicious circle. It's a circle. It's a circle that takes us deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper until we can never come out again.
I guess we're sort of dissatisfied all the way through, aren't we? Really, it's something.
Dissatisfaction is the driving force.
Yeah, and at any point, if we suddenly become satisfied with what we've achieved or done,
yes,
we're falling back.
Yes.
It needs to be continuous.
Yes.
Yeah.
False satisfaction is the biggest enemy.
Yeah.
It's much better to be dissatisfied, because dissatisfaction will drive us, keep us. When the Mahabharata war was over, Krishna asked Draupadi and the Pandavas what boon they wanted from him, and they each asked something. And finally came Draupadi's turn, and Draupadi said, "Always keep us in trouble, because so long as we're in trouble, we're always thinking of you. If you give us good times, we'll forget about you." So the driving force in sadhana is the dissatisfaction. So those of us who are dissatisfied will be making faster progress. Those who are satisfied, I'm now making very good progress. We're satisfied, and I become big and fat, and we're stuck where we are. We don't go any further. We're satisfied with our silver mine, and we don't go any further to find the gold mine.
But strictly, we're not going to be satisfied with realization of self either.
Dissatisfaction is a great blessing Bhagavan has given us. If you look in the world, can you show me anyone who is satisfied? Look out on the street, look at the ants in the grass. No living being is satisfied. Because so long as we take a body to the eye, we have separated ourselves from what we really are. And so long as we are separated from that, we will always be discontented.
So to be born is just to be dissatisfied.
Yes, yes.
What a wonderful word.
Yes.
So I guess probably the dissatisfaction just increases, right, as you keep going. Right?
Yes, it does.
Until it
It
gets
does.
to a point where it's actually bursting.
Yes, but dissatisfaction is a negative way of describing swatma bhakti, the love for self. The more intense we have that love for self, the more dissatisfied we'll be with everything else.
It's a kind of passion, isn't it? Right? Dissatisfaction is a kind of passion. Or it's the kind of
satisfaction with anything other than
it's the sense that there's something beyond the things that you're dissatisfied.
Yeah, we're dissatisfied because we feel that what we've got now is not all that we should have.
It seems more and more hollow this time.
Yeah, exactly. So,
are you using the word I as an alternative to self?
Yes, it means the same. When we say self...
The reason I'm asking is, I mean, it could cause, when I'm hearing the continuous use of it,
yes,
and I'm not too sure what it's doing to other people.
Right.
I know what you're referring to.
Right.
But if I ramble a bit.
Yes.
So it's not the bashful I
yes.
that disappears when you look for it. It's not the I that disappears in sleep.
No.
It's not the I amness. So that's the clarification.
Yes. But there are not two different I's. The I that disappears, when we talk about the I disappearing, when we look at it, what disappears is all the adjuncts. Now I feel I am Michael. But when I look at this I, Michael drops off. So I say, oh, the I has gone. Actually, the substance of I, it's like if you see a snake, you're walking in the half light of dusk, and you see a snake on the ground. If you look at it very carefully, the snake disappears, and what remains is the rope. But they're not two different things. Actually, you were always seeing only the rope. So now we're only experiencing the real I now, but we mistake it to be this mind, this body.
The I that you see, there's a state where there is no I left, and that's nivriti. So, which is, you can have a state with I.
You say there is a state.
Yes.
Sorry, okay, you say.
Well, you
okay.
to use the word state.
No, I have no problem with the word state.
It's a stateless state.
Yeah, okay.
There's no name, there's no, there's no attributes.
No, but Did you want to ask anything more? Because...
But so, I'm still trying to get at what you're referring to, just to clear it up.
Right, okay. You say there's this state in which there's no I.
Yes.
Who experiences that state?
There is no one to experience that state.
But there is an experience.
How can I say this? It's difficult to...
So I'm not trying to catch up. What I'm trying to say is that when you say there's no I, that there is never a state with no I, actually. When you say there's no I, what you mean is there's no ego I. There's no I as a separate, I separate from what is experiencing. There's only that, the pure consciousness, which is the real I.
It's like, when I look at this picture, the building is empty, the lights are out, he's permanently at lunch, there's no one there.
Yes.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, no one means no person, but...
You cannot put a handle on it, a
okay.
name on it.
Okay.
There's no attribute.
Okay, right. I understand what you're saying. It is beyond, it's ineffable. It cannot be expressed in words. But Bhagavan says, in that state, there is consciousness. There is consciousness of being. I am.
Yes,
that is the real I Bhagavan is talking about.
There's something finer than that, but
I'm not saying the words I am capture it, but it is an experience of it's, for want of any better words, Bhagavan expresses as I am. It's a first-person experience. It is a self-experience.
It's still relative knowledge when there's a description of it, because there is a relative knowledge to the description of what we're trying to point out to. So it's still merely words, you know. So it's yeah.
But the words will never capture it. But Bhagavan had a very good reason for emphasizing knowing I. And though he said the full side will drop down, when it drops down, it reveals what is the substance behind that.
I understand it's the bridge.
Yes.
And it's the bridge to take you there.
Yes.
But that drops. But that's the clarification.
Yeah. Okay.
So that bridge falls away.
Yes.
Yes, because in deep sleep there is no one there to recognize that which is still relative knowledge. I'm talking, okay. But actually, no one can deny its existence in deep sleep. Although there's no one to recognize that.
Well, there's a nice expression: no one enters nirvana, all comes out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I ask something? I hope this is okay to ask. I'll ask it. I assume that your life is reasonably peaceful. Am I correct in the assumption?
Relatively, possibly, but it's not. What is reasonable peace? Are any of however reasonably peaceful our life is, are any of us really satisfied?
Pardon?
However relatively peaceful our life may be,
yes.
None of us are actually satisfied.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. I'm very unsatisfied.
Yeah.
So clearly I'm perfect for this path.
Yeah.
But I'm also a very emotional person.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel I need other practices to support me in my working through all my emotional stuff and in addition to that self-inquiry. So I'm just thinking, whether sometimes, basically for me, I'm looking like, what is the right balance? I don't want to be doing self-inquiry, let's say, 100% of my practice time if I'd be better off with another mix. I don't expect you to be able to tell me what is the perfect mix.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, my question is, well, first of all, it is good to see who has been on this path of self-inquiry and who has actually got all the way or has got to that ultimate state. And the other question is, would there be some kind of way of, to me, peace, stability of peace is like a measurement, in terms of progress. Like, I know I'm not very stable in my peace, so I know all the work that I need to do. Would you say that is a...
If you read, for example, Bhagavan's 5 hymns on Arunachala, some of them are expressing, it's clear from he's expressing his state of attainment, but many of them are prayers. And if you read those prayers, they are not, it is clear that they're prayers from a very anguished heart. They are not prayer doesn't arise from peace. Prayer arises from anguish. And if you read the prayers of any great saints, any great sages, you can see how much intense their anguish is.
Yes.
Because the more our mind is purified, the closer we get to our goal, the more painfully we will feel the separation.
That makes sense. But he wasn't separate anymore.
He wasn't, but he was. His body and mind were used as an instrument for expressing what is the state of a person who is getting very close to it, but hasn't yet reached there.
So in case of Muruggana and Sadhu Om were described by others as jnanis, they are all in a state of anguish, were they?
They have, both of them have written songs in which you can see great anguish is there. Because of that great anguish which they experienced, they reached what they were praying for.
Was it a false modesty or a modesty that prevented them from? I mean, you can't answer that question because I'm asking about somebody or what appearance.
Muruggana has written thousands and thousands of verses relating expressing in words what he experienced by Bhagavan's grace. So Muruggana didn't go around saying, I am a jnani, but in literally many thousands of verses, he has made that very clear. Sadhu Om, on the other hand, there are slight hints here and there, but they're very indirect hints. Like Sadhu Om has written one work called Ramana Sahasram. It's 1,000 verses praying for jnana. And towards the end, in one verse, he said, have I attained? Have I not attained? I don't know. It's a different way of expressing. So Sadhu Om, my own belief is both Muruggana and Sadhu Om have attained the same state. For a particular purpose, Bhagavan used Muruggana's body and mind to sing so many verses expressing about the state of attainment, and he used Sadhu Om's body and mind to express that state of prayer and anguish. Actually, their state is the same, but if you see their verses, Muruggana has also written many verses of prayer, but most of Muruggana's verses are expressing that his wonder, the great grace of Bhagavan, what Bhagavan is giving him. Sadhu Om didn't sing like that. That is obviously Bhagavan chose to use their bodies and mind in different ways.
Yes, but I'm not referring more to what Bhagavan did. I'm referring to what people around them.
What people around them, those of us around them, we're all ignorant, and many people around Sadhu Om and Muruggana thought they criticised them and found fault with them and so much wrong with them. Others said, oh, they're great jnanis. It's all according to the mind of the onlooker. We can't, even many people found fault with Bhagavan, so we can't judge the jnanis by what those who are around them say about them. A jnani is no greater by 1,000 people praising him as a jnani, and he's no less great by 1,000 people criticizing him.
Praising, it's just a question of understanding and realizing and accepting that they've reached their goal.
The truth is,
they've reached the goal.
The truth is, none of us have understood that Bhagavan is a jnani, or Muruggana is a jnani, or anyone else is a jnani, because we don't know what the state of jnana is. According to our very confused understanding, we take it Bhagavan has attained the highest state, whatever that may be. And we will have some idea about what that highest state is. But we really haven't, none of us have understood Bhagavan. There's only one state of understanding. In order to understand Bhagavan, we must understand ourselves, because Bhagavan is ourselves. So even to say Bhagavan is a jnani is actually wrong. Because when we say Bhagavan is a jnani, we point to the body. But Bhagavan is not his body. So just taking Bhagavan to be the body itself shows our ignorance. So that's why Bhagavan says, who can understand the state, that state? None of us can understand what state Bhagavan is in.
We'll all attempt to attain it. Yes?
We can only experience it. If we're experiencing it, then there will be no more problems.
He did say it was the state was beyond the state of Ajani and Jani.
Yeah, it's beyond it. This is another duality. Jnana, jnana.
It's beyond.
Yeah, it's beyond all these things.
Sorry, excuse me. What he's saying basically, there is no human definition for the state he is in.
No.
Is that correct?
No. It's beyond. It's beyond thought. So because it's beyond thoughts, it's beyond words. The mind cannot capture it. The mind can only lose itself in it.
So all this literature that we get and various people being enlightened,
Yes.
it's just interpretations.
Yes. Sadhguru has written a very nice poem called, which the meaning of which is who is a jnani?
Yeah.
And in it he says there's only one jnani and you are that. All the other jnanis you see are just projections of your own ignorance. Because you see a body and you say this is a jnani, that is ignorance.
So it wouldn't be ignorant to turn around and say, I don't believe he's a jnani. It wouldn't be ignorant to say that.
It doesn't really matter what you believe. Who believes, whether we believe Bhagavan is a jnani or not, what we need to find out is who believes it. Bhagavan never asks us to believe anything about him. Because belief is a product of the mind. Bhagavan wants us to experience that. Believing Bhagavan is a jnani is no use to us unless we ourselves experience it.
So we need belief for religion.
Yes.
You need a personal experience.
We need a personal
Somebody
experience.
have to put that in. Exactly, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
He had disciples of all kinds of religions, didn't he? And
Yes.
he already said doing all kinds of other practices. I mean, I'm a bit concerned, like if I just do self-inquiry, it almost like it becomes like, can it not become an ego identification? Like I'm on the best path. Self-inquiry, it'll get
So long
straight there.
when you're thinking you're on the best path, you're not practicing self-inquiry, are you? If you're really practicing self-inquiry, there'll be no room for the thought, I'm on the best path. Any thought is a distraction away from self-inquiry.
Well,
so there's no room for ego in Bhagavan's path. If ego rises, we've left Bhagavan's path. We're betraying Bhagavan.
Well, exactly. but that's why I'm a bit concerned that if you say that self-inquiry is the best, and basically we're saying
Why think
you're better than.
Why think I am practicing self-inquiry? Just practice it.
Would you give us a definition, just again, of what is self-inquiry?
Definition. Bhagavan says fixing the mind in self is self-inquiry. Fixing your attention on self, fixing your attention on that. That's all.
But what is the outcome of that?
The outcome of that, there is no outcome.
That's right.
If you attend to anything other than I, the outcome is all this. But if you attend only to I, all outcomes cease. And what is always there alone remains. Relative to our present state of ignorance, yes, there is an outcome. There is the destruction of the mind, whatever else we may call it.
I think on that note we've got to our sort of time is up at 5:15.
You'll have to come back then.
You haven't finished your sheet yet.
Yeah, I know. Last time I managed to go through 6 paragraphs. This time only 3 paragraphs. And we've still got 11 to go.
That's good.
Are we getting better?
What?
Are we asking more questions? Are we getting better?
Yes. Well, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm getting better. So, I mean, who is to judge?
Maybe you could come back next month or the month after to finish this.
I think we'll do it maybe next summer.
Or maybe not.
Oh.
Maybe not. Who knows?
Come more often. We're getting more enlightened with you.
Words will never enlighten us.
Can I ask ask one last question, and if you're not going to come back until next time?
Yes.
Did Ramana ever say that he and Jesus were in that stateless state? Well, there's no he, yeah. Did he ever refer to what state or stage Jesus had realized? Because he talks about the
In Bhagavan's
all understanding.
In Bhagavan's view, there is no one who hasn't realized.
True, I agree with that.
So he's not going to say this person is realized, that person is not realized. For Bhagavan, there is only realization alone is real.
Yeah. But some
So for Bhagavan, there are no persons. But Bhagavan did point out that Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am." Therefore, Jesus is not a person, because the person Jesus was born long after Abraham. So when he said, "Before Abraham was, I am," he's not talking about himself as a person. He's talking about the eternal I am. And actually the reason why Jesus was crucified, the main reason, what really angered the Jewish orthodoxy, was his free use of the word I am. Because there was one word that no one should use is I am. Because in the Old Testament, God said to Moses, "I am that I am." Tell Pharaoh that I am has sent you. Tell your people that I am has sent you. Since that time, they consider I am as the most sacred name of God. Therefore, nobody should utter the name I am. But there was Jesus using I am left, right, and center. That's what really angered him. And when they asked him, "Are you the Messiah?" he didn't say, "I am the Messiah." He said, "I am." It wasn't meaning yes, it means I am. That's when they finally decided that they should hand him over to the Romans for execution.
We normally end with the bhajan.
Okay, right.
Om Namah Shivaya.